Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry, I had to move outside. The dogs are stuck outside because we have some construction going on, and they do not like being outside, so that is their MO. But okay, so if you guys have questions that I didn't get around to, you guys can totally ask them. Sometimes I don't see the questions come in, so if I didn't answer the questions, just let me know and ask them again. Sorry. All right, let's see, any questions? Okay, let's see if this works out. I think I might be too far from my Wi-Fi. All right. May I ask why milk thistle can cause bad nausea, and is it possible to fix bad pathways for estrogen? Yeah, it's not, I mean, when it comes to bad pathways, we don't want to obsess about them. We just want to make sure that our body's functioning as optimally as possible so it breaks down estrogen a lot more efficiently. And supporting our body overall instead of focusing on very specific little symptoms is going to be so much better and get us so much more success and results. When it comes to milk thistle, it can cause bad nausea because it is very detoxifying, and so some people are so toxic or they're not breaking down things very well at all, and so they need to go very low and slow with it, or they can't even handle it at all. So sometimes they need to improve their detox just by eating better, getting their gut better figured out, and then some people just can't do certain herbs at all. It just really depends on the person. I've asked about exfoliation for blackheads. For blackheads, you mentioned there's a deeper issue, always. What would this be? A lot of times it's oil production, sometimes it's gut issues. People find that as they improve their gut, they actually see less blackheads, or they improve the fats in their diet. So I wouldn't stress about it. A lot of times as your body balances out, weird things like that tend to go away or improve over time. But when it comes to exfoliation, you just want to be careful. Like, you don't really want to exfoliate your face really harshly. But you know, squeezing blackheads is, I believe, okay. I'm not an esthetician, but any estheticians that are here, I think squeezing your blackheads is okay. What are some ways to support the health of my ligaments? I'm pregnant and experiencing pelvic girdle pain. Thank you. Keep in mind that estrogen is going to cause our ligaments to change, and sometimes it can be because just because of hormones, but a lot of times magnesium can help with it in some cases. So maybe ask your doctor about supplementing magnesium or doing some type of like Epsom salt baths or something like that. But you always want to really make sure you double check. And then making sure that you are like eating really well, not eating too much junk, and supporting like inflammation levels overall. But sometimes it can just be that estrogen is affecting our ligaments and causing us stretching, especially in the third trimester, because we're getting ready. The body's starting to prepare for birth. Can a hair tissue? I don't think I saw the rest of your question, girly. What do you think of taking artichoke extract for liver? SAT, like from Thorne, does have artichoke extract, but again, like I said before in the last live, if your body doesn't have the fundamental nutrients that you need to have a healthy liver, things like artichoke extract are not going to do much good, and sometimes can actually do harm. We need to really make sure we're nourishing ourselves first and foremost, and then a lot of times the liver takes care of itself. But B vitamins by far are the most detoxifying things for the liver, the most important nutrients for supporting detoxification. Because really, when we say of like the liver detox, it's really not that. Our body's constantly detoxifying. It's more about supporting detoxification pathways to be either more efficient or less efficient. I've been reading more into vitamin K and seeing higher doses recommended, 15 to 45 milligrams. Would this be worth looking into for high androgens? Why to take it separate away from D? You don't want to take excessive doses of D. It's very dangerous to do so. Vitamin D is mistakenly thought to be a vitamin. It is actually a hormone, and supplementing vitamin D can actually be quite stressful and raise ACTH levels. Keep in mind that there's a progression that happens before we become low in vitamin D. It's not like our body just lets vitamin D become low. It actually lowers vitamin D for a very specific purpose. First, we have potassium loss, then we have magnesium loss, then we have boron loss, then we have calcification. I believe we have lithium loss. and rubidium loss. And then once all of those minerals become lost, calcification increases, and then finally vitamin D will lower to protect the calcification of the soft tissues, because once calcium is elevated, vitamin D is going to calcify those soft tissues, and so the body needs to protect that. When it comes to vitamin K, I think it's very expensive. Like, you have to understand, vitamin K is incredibly expensive, and so supplementing 15 to 45 milligrams, I mean, I don't see a problem in trying it and seeing how it works, but that's very pricey. Like, I would, yikes, because most of the dosages you find are going to be micrograms. So I don't think an excessive amount like 15 milligrams is necessary. I think around like 1 or 2 might be more doable, but again, I think it's like always a choice, and experimenting is always a personal choice. Can we order hair tissue mineral analysis, or it can only be done in the USA? I believe it can be done internationally in a lot of places. Where are you located? You just have to look for a lab that does hair tissue mineral analysis. I know many labs in different places in different countries contract with Trace Elements International, and so they will actually allow different labs to send those samples to them. So I would look around in your country to see where it's available. What's with essential oils taken internally? I feel like it's such a controversial topic. It's not controversial, it's dangerous. It should never be done, ever. Like ever. There's a difference between essential oils and then oils extracted for internal use. Like, for example, oregano is something that I use, like, and it's put into an olive oil, like it's already diluted. But essential oils that are sold, like, for example, doTERRA and Young Living, like they are not meant for internal use, and any true aromatherapist will tell you how dangerous it is to take them internally and how damaging they can be. Plants are medicine, just like, you go to the pharmacy and you get medicine as medicine, and to act like, oh, this is just a plant, so it couldn't be that harmful or that potent, is just very irresponsible. They're very harsh on the liver, and they're almost always estrogenic, and so I don't believe they should ever be taken internally. Why would ashwagandha make someone bloated? It's a nightshade, and so sometimes people that are very sensitive to nightshades have a lot of an immune response, or super inflamed. They don't respond to ashwagandha well because of its nightshade ness. Or it could also be because if it's not organic. Remember, anything that's not organic, including supplements and herbs, are going to have pesticide residue, which can really mess with the microbiome. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Does an increase in acne after stopping supplement that contain iron mean my body is detoxing excess iron? How to get rid of excess iron? Yes, and it just takes time, honestly. Increasing vitamin C by eating more vitamin C rich foods does help. Increasing sodium, potassium, and magnesium does help. Increasing B vitamins does help, but it does take time. I missed what you had to said on your last live on glutathione and mitochondria for super low levels. Is it worth supplementing first before any other nutrients can get into the cell? I've never supplemented glutathione in my life, and I don't think I would ever encourage a client to do so unless they were already taking it and they really liked it. Keep in mind, your liver is what makes glutathione, and it needs specific minerals to do so. And if it doesn't have those minerals, just support those minerals and support the production of glutathione over actually experimenting or taking a very expensive supplement that may or may not be beneficial. Selenium is very specifically needed to make glutathione. A lot of people that have low glutathione levels are deficient in selenium, but one of the best ways to stimulate your liver to make glutathione is coffee enemas. How are you? How's your week been? Thank you for asking. It's been okay. It's been a little bit more of a stressful week. Some weeks are better than others, and I'm a stressful person. I just stress myself out a lot, but it's actually been okay. Thank you for asking. It's been kind of a stressful one, so I'm kind of tired, and I've had this low-grade headache for a couple of days. Thoughts on derma rolling? Derma rolling is pretty good, especially for hair growth. For people that are trying to stimulate hair growth, derma rolling is actually really good. But derma rolling on the skin is really good. You just have to be very careful not to introduce contaminants into your skin, because you are puncturing small holes in your skin. And so, you want to be very, very careful to sterilize. I'm like, what's the word? Sterilize your derma roller so that you're not causing infections in your skin. What are your thoughts about PSMF diet, high protein diet that lasts 6 to 12 weeks? I don't really think a high protein diet is a very good idea if you want to get your gut under control. Usually excessive amounts of protein are actually going to cause more ammonia, and ammonia producing bacteria consume protein. And so I would say like it matters what types of protein you're eating. It matters how your digestive system is working, but I don't think like a high protein diet is going to produce a lot of ammonia in the body, and then that can cause a lot of problems. But there's no need to like, it's so funny because we always in our culture take everything to extremes. It's like, oh, protein's good for you. And then people are like, how about a high protein diet? And I'm like, okay, no. It's like anything into like too much is going to usually be not good any longer. What is the best way to supplement vitamin C? In whole foods form, so like lemon, lime, orange juice, and like, potatoes do have some vitamin C in them, but usually the cooking process will destroy it. So fruit tends to be very high in vitamin C, like mango, for example. And then if you wanted to supplement it, like a high or a food source vitamin C, that's going to be derived from like acerola or amla or camu. I really like Health Force or Pure Radiance vitamin C. Those are some good whole food vitamin C's, but it is possible to get enough from your food. You just have to be eating lots of fruits. Your magnesium bicarbonate recipe has cleared up my cystic acne significantly. Woohoo! Because yeah, it's helping you actually utilize iron better, and cystic acne is driven by iron coming through the face. Can you explain the science behind this? My mind is blown by the change. Yeah, keep in mind, guys, all acne is driven by iron. So iron feeds pathogens. This is why we can sometimes find that we have low blood iron levels when we have really bad infections. It's because the body's actually hiding iron from pathogens. And so keep in mind that the liver and the kidneys detoxify iron really, really well. They actually store a lot of iron, but they can detoxify iron. But once they become full of iron, they cannot take any more. And so it keeps going in the bloodstream until it makes its way to another organ that will take up some heavy metals and minerals, your brain. But the brain will not take up iron. It doesn't need iron, doesn't want iron. And you have a skull around your brain, right? But not on your face. And so that iron will start to move through the skin a lot of times. It can also move through the back or any other place really. But a lot of times it will move through the skin of the face and feed bacteria in the skin. And therefore cystic acne and acne is born. And it can have other things. It's usually a sign of poor detoxification altogether, but it can also be a sign of excessive iron in the tissues and your inability to utilize iron properly. You need vitamin C and magnesium to utilize iron properly. So that's why. But yeah, magnesium is very important for clearing up acne. I heard you talking about boron and lithium. Is that something we need to supplement? How would we do that, or how would we know we are deficient? I use hair tissue mineral analysis. A lot of times you'll hear me talk about minerals here. I don't really recommend supplementing minerals unless you know you truly need them, because it can get kind of excessive, and if you don't need them, you can cause even further imbalances. So really, I recommend testing with a hair tissue mineral analysis. But when it comes to boron, an easy way to get some more boron transdermally is to do like foot baths or baths with borax in them. Just make sure you're using 100% borax and not like a borax cleaning solution. And that's a great way to absorb some boron transdermally. And when it comes to lithium, yeah, usually I have to supplement it if it's low. So does low vitamin D levels always suggest a calcium shell? It doesn't always suggest a calcium shell, but it almost always suggests that there's some type of calcification occurring, or there was like a potassium loss, a magnesium loss, a boron loss, a lithium loss, a rubidium loss. There's mineral losses occurring, but usually it's going to be there's some type of calcification that has either occurred or has occurred in the past. Are girls with PCOS having more painful ovulation? Yeah, or they're not having an ovulation altogether, but a painful ovulation is almost always estrogen related and inflammation related, and so we need to support that liver and make sure that we are getting inflammation down by taking more vitamin C, getting more magnesium, making sure that we're eating protein, carb, and fat every couple of hours, not eating too many phytoestrogens from nuts and seeds and beans and improperly prepared grains. We need to make sure we're supporting the body fundamentally so that our body can detoxify better. Our cells are working better, and so we're making more thyroid hormone and we're making more progesterone, both things needed to detoxify estrogen properly. And so if we're having estrogen dominant symptoms, it's not, we need to focus on estrogen dominance. We need to support our whole body as a whole. How to fix the liver's ability to store fuel so that I don't experience hunger like an hour after eating. That usually takes time. Unfortunately, a lot of times when we've been under stress for so long, or we have a genetic tendency to like jump into a stress response, it can take quite some time to restore the liver's ability. But B vitamins really do help, like brewer's yeast, grass-fed beef liver, those types of things. Bee pollen is another source of B vitamins. Magnesium is very, very helpful to help the cells utilize sugar better and uptake sugar better. I'm trying to think what else. Vitamin C can be helpful because it's helping us utilize copper better. And then just being consistent. It can sometimes take quite some time to get a stressed body back to being able to hold glycogen stores, usually like 6 months to a year sometimes. How are you? How's your headache? Oh, thank you. You guys are so sweet for asking me how I'm doing. My headache's pretty much good. I went to the chiropractor. I usually go to the chiropractor at least once a month, but my neck was kind of creaked, and I was like, and my hips were really off. And so I was like, you know what? My knee's hurting and I have a headache. I think my hips are really off. And they were. So I got adjusted the other day, and that really did help a lot. And then, I don't know, I just kind of have like a low grade. I've just been tired around this time, but usually happens like around ovulation. I'll get kind of like a little bit more tired, a little bit less like outgoing and happy and like energized, and that's just kind of normal for me. But yeah, I'm feeling okay. Thank you guys so much for caring. Are you against the vegan diet? I'm not against the vegan diet. I'm against what the vegan diet does to the body. I really don't like diets that are really elevated in copper and deficient in zinc. I don't like diets that are going to restrict sulfur from you and taurine from you and affect your detoxification. I do not work with people on a vegan diet because I can't do anything. If you're not detoxifying well and you're not eating some type of animal protein to do so, I can't help you. And so that's kind of my thing, is I don't work with somebody that's on a vegan diet, and that should tell you that like I've seen way too much. And the reason for it is just I can't help someone that's not going to detoxify well. We can't push detoxification. There's nothing we can really do. Like, you know, if someone's not willing to eat liver or gelatin or collagen, I'm just kind of like, I don't know how to help you. You know, like if you truly want to heal, it does take some type of animal proteins, and specifically the sulfur and taurine found in animal proteins to detoxify properly and get the liver back to optimal function. Thoughts on diatomaceous earth for gut heavy metal detox and hair and nail benefits? I've heard a lot of good things and was curious about your take on it. Yeah, I actually utilize it kind of. It's one of the silicas that I use. It's just important to not do it like right away. It's not the first thing that needs to happen. We first need to kind of balance our metabolism a little more, or pushing heavy metal detox can actually make us feel worse, not better. But yeah, diatomaceous earth is pretty safe, and it's very gentle. So yeah, it's very rich in silica, great for hair, skin, and nails, and also for heavy metal binding and some gut health stuff. But it's not gonna fix everything as a whole. Like a lot of people go into supplements thinking like, oh, it's gonna be like magic, and I'm like, unfortunately it won't be magic, but it might help some things. How do people with IBS, Crohn's disease, or even PCOS with lots of stress still manage to have clear skin? I know it's really hard, especially when you're trying to clear your skin, and acne is definitely a mental, emotional struggle as much as it is a physical struggle. And I know it can be really hard to watch people that have really bad health issues and have clear skin. But remind yourself that they might have other symptoms that you're really not aware of, or that are even worse than yours. Like I've seen people that have really bad boils, or, you know, really bad issues that might not be having acne, but are other issues that affect their whole life. So it can be really easy to look at other people and say like they have it so much easier, but a lot of times, you know how life is. they would look at you and say like, oh, you have it so easy too. And, you know, you're both wrong. So just remember that everyone has their own struggles that they're going through. Do you believe in the mapping of the skin for acne? For example, jawline breakouts are hormonal related. In a sense, yes, but most acne is driven by iron issues. So poor detoxification, and you don't have what you need to move iron out of the body properly. You're not utilizing copper properly. You're super magnesium deficient, potassium, sodium. There's issues going on that are really affecting detoxification. And yeah, it's going to affect certain lymph nodes. Like for example, remember guys, you have all these lymph nodes, and a lot of times if you'll start to actually pay attention to where your breakouts pop up, you'll start to see that's, oh, it's right on top of a lymph node. It's really interesting. And so a lot of times, yes, it has something to do with a certain system that you're dealing with. Like for example, you know, on your forehead, that's usually going to be gut and liver related. This is going to be kind of kidney related. So it does have merit, but it's at the same time, it's not like we need to focus on that specific organ. We need to focus on detoxification in the whole body, optimizing it and supporting it. How to get protein higher than fat in a day? Fat keeps being around 35% and protein around 15%, even when eating meat or eggs at every meal. Well, how much are you eating would be the first thing. And then the second thing is, that's why I usually will add collagen in. And gelatin, collagen, gelatin, bone broth. I'll usually have one of those with every single meal to supplement my protein. And then sometimes I will use like a casein protein if I'm having a hard time meeting my protein needs for the day. But I usually will have like 3 eggs, for example, for breakfast and collagen in my coffee. Or for lunch, I'm doing like, a roast beef sandwich with butternut squash soup and mixing collagen in my soup or gelatin in my soup. So, I'm making sure that I'm hitting the protein that I need every meal. And usually you have to kind of calculate like, I need to hit around 30 grams per meal. I'm thinking about getting some organ meat supplements. Should I get beef liver or a mix of the organ meats? That's just kind of a personal decision. They're really good supplements. They're one of my favorites. And I love liver, but I think that like a mix of the beef organs is good too. Is the copper bioavailable in the copper IUD? So would copper IUD help as copper is low, or would IUD cause excess unbioavailable copper? The second. A lot of people that have the copper IUD have copper issues. They have a lot of excess unbioavailable copper, but they're actually experience copper deficiency as well. So it can cause issues. Thanks for all your advice. Is it better to drink water before or after a meal? It's just better to not drink water around a meal at all, if you can, or if you need to, like sip on hot water. It's just a bad habit, like chugging water before or after a meal. But I would say probably before, like 10 to 15 minutes before would probably be better, even though it's going to dilute the stomach acid a little bit. Talked about some people does not tolerate too much fat. I feel like I'm that person, especially if people have insulin resistance. Can you talk more about this? Yeah, the more free fatty acids we have in their bloodstream, the less our body is willing to take up glucose. So a lot of times people that have insulin resistance actually do really well on low fat diets. And when they do get fat, they're getting fat from the right sources. Not always, this is not true for everyone, but some people really, really do. I highly recommend looking at the YouTube video Amplified Vitality, or not the YouTube video, the YouTube channel Amplified Vitality. He goes into this a lot, and it really is, he lays it out really well. But yeah, fruit and fructose really helps with insulin resistance, and being majority low fat can help a lot. I notice that when I go out, like I don't go out of my way to avoid fat, but I don't go out of my way to add fat in. I tend to look leaner and feel better as if I was like excessively consuming fats. I think like a lot of us go on low carb diets, or we eat like high fat, or we're post keto, and a lot of times we have like gotten in the habit of excessively adding fat to everything, not realizing that when we put the ghee in the pan to make our eggs, we're using 2 tablespoons instead of a half a tablespoon, and it can really add up. Keep in mind that every single gram of fat has 9 calories, which is a unit of energy, but keep in mind that every macronutrient, protein, carb, and fat, is burned very differently. And so burning fat takes very little energy. Burning carbohydrate and sugar takes a lot of energy. So you actually burn 10% of the calories you're consuming, literally burning the carbohydrate you're eating. So you're literally burning calories while eating a calorie of carbohydrate. And that goes for protein as well. Very little is burned when you're doing fat. amounts. So it's just more energy is burned per gram of carbohydrate than per gram of fat. Can you speak to the Mirena IUD? I do have a whole highlight story on IUDs. The Mirena IUD is levonorgestrel, I believe, which is a progestin, and it's secreted in small amounts throughout the lifetime of the IUD. But yeah, it definitely is, it's a progesterone only birth control, but that's really just progestins, which are fake progesterones, and so they do have androgenic, a little bit of an androgenic action, a little bit of an estrogenic action. So they can affect the cycle. Not always. There are a lot of women who do ovulate on the Mirena IUD, usually after the first year. The first year, the Mirena is a little bit more potent, and so more women will report not ovulating, and there's some studies that show like it can affect ovulation, but like post the first year, it tends to be a little bit weaker, and so ovulation can occur. But I've worked with a lot of women, and a lot of them weren't ovulating on it at all, so it just kind of depends. Thoughts on reishi? Yeah, I love medicinal mushrooms. It's just very difficult to find them when they're actually high quality. I recommend buying them directly from, like, for example, Mountain Rose Herbs. Buy the dried reishi, or like the dried up mushroom itself, and make like a mushroom soup or a mushroom stew and actually consume them, rather than like buying a supplement powder, because they tend to be a little bit lower quality. Sorry, I think my question disappeared. Why would ashwagandha make someone bloated? Sorry if you already answered this. No, that's fine. I answered it, and I just said that ashwagandha is a nightshade. So if you're sensitive to nightshades, you will react to ashwagandha. So that's a possibility. And it's also, you know, if you are consuming non-organic supplements, it's similar to consuming non-organic vegetables. Like, you need to think and keep in mind that they're sprayed heavily in pesticides most of the time. And so you can be being exposed to pesticides. And the problem with pesticides is a lot of people say, like, whatever, what's a little Roundup? But glyphosate affects our bacteria because it is a antibacterial. It kills bacteria. It kills bugs. And so when we're consuming an antibacterial, we're affecting our whole microbiome. We're also affecting our absorption of B12, and it can deplete B12, and we don't want to deplete B12 because it's needed for energy. So if you're not reacting to a supplement well, specifically an adaptogen, it might not work for you. Hello, is the same protocol applicable for men as is for women and low thyroid function? Hubby had low TSH and other low numbers on thyroid panel. His mom and sister struggle with Hashimoto's. Yes, very similar. Everything I teach here can be applied to men as well, except for, you know, progesterone and cycles and things like that. They're a little different in that regard, but they're just as susceptible to stress as women. I would say they're a little bit more resilient than women, but that completely depends on their diet and their lifestyle. Men tend to stress themselves out and push until they can't push anymore. And so that's, you know, not great for the body long term. I used to take Vital Proteins collagen and decided to buy Great Lakes gelatin, but noticed that it made me really bloated and gassy. Why is that? Did you do gelatin or collagen? Gelatin, how did you consume it? Gelatin usually needs to be dissolved in hot water, or it can cause a lot of digestive issues. Keep in mind that collagen is hydrolyzed and broken down from gelatin into a more like broken down form. And usually you can work tolerance up for gelatin. It just, you gotta kind of start a little bit slower. I had my copper IUD removed because I felt suicidal and had clinical depression. Just because it's copper doesn't mean that it doesn't have side effects. Yeah, I've seen people go literally crazy on the copper IUD, and I'm talking like psychosis, locked in a mental institution crazy. So it's important to understand that, you know, copper is not always, just because it's not hormonal doesn't mean it's not affecting your body. Are you familiar with the Centivia countertop water system with the fluoride filter? I was recommended it by another holistic nutritionist and spent so much on it. I'm not familiar with it. A Centivia countertop water system. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've never, is it like a gravity filter, like a Berkey? I'm not sure. Thoughts on fructose intolerance? Can this be reversed? Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that's like just similar to like sucrose intolerance and like all these intolerances. I'm like, if you're intolerant to things, it's because your body's really messed up, not because like that food itself is bad. Fructose intolerance can be reversed. It just takes usually about 2 weeks. So you got to kind of go slow, especially if you aren't eating a lot of fruit. It has a lot to do with like small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. A lot of times there's bacteria that's grown in the small intestine, which is affecting how you're breaking down certain, I guess, saccharides. So you really want to make sure that you're working on clearing that bacteria as well. And a raw carrot salad is an excellent way to work on that while you're working on implementing more fruit. When estrogen rises during progesterone, why is it the best that can happen for you when you have endo? Isn't that a condition that's fed by estrogen? I don't think it's the best that can happen for you when you have endo. I think having your progesterone rise, keep in mind, so before you ovulate, your estrogen spikes up. Once you ovulate and drop that egg, your corpus luteum starts making you progesterone, so your progesterone spikes up, and your estrogen actually starts to decline. You have a second spike of estrogen, like mid-luteal phase, but it's not as high. Your progesterone should be the dominant hormone in the second half of the cycle, but a lot of times what's happening is progesterone's not rising, and so estrogen is the dominant hormone, and then your detoxification of estrogen is poor, and so here you have this double whammy where estrogen is just staying high all cycle long. Like you're having elevated estrogen all cycle long, and you're not having any progesterone to balance it out. You're having low progesterone or no progesterone. And so, yeah, estrogen makes endometriosis a lot worse because it increases bacteria. Keep in mind, estrogen is a hormone of growth, right? Feeds candida, feeds bacteria. So when you're detoxifying it from I'm pointing here, your gallbladder, your liver is breaking down estrogen into its metabolites, pushing it into the bile in the gallbladder, and then when you eat a meal that contains fat and it goes into the small intestine, your gallbladder is going to secrete bile into the small intestine, and that bile is going to carry that estrogen out of the body. When there's excessive amounts of estrogen or they're not being detoxified well, they will go back into the bloodstream, so you're reabsorbing estrogen, reutilizing it, or your digestive system is working so sluggishly and going so slow that the estrogen is actually stimulating growth of pathogens. And estrogen also affects the digestive tract. It can be reabsorbed into the digestive tract. I'm oversimplifying it for the sake of time, but estrogen's not the best thing that can happen for you when you have endo. So I don't know who said that, but like I definitely wouldn't say that. And if I did, I meant progesterone probably, because that is not the best thing for endo. And I would say like endometriosis is driven mostly by endotoxins. There's a reason why the name works and why so many antibacterials tend to help with symptoms of endometriosis. It's because it's a toxin, an endotoxin or a bacterial toxin driven condition, but estrogen makes that worse. Because it slows down your thyroid, and your thyroid is going to regulate your immune system. And so if your immune system's not working and your thyroid is not working, the bacteria in your gut is going to be affected. What ranges do you like to see for TSH, T3, T4? My level's considered normal by medical doctors, but I don't feel like that's correct. For TSH, it's usually between 1 and 2. For free T3, it's above 3. And for reverse T3, it's like around 15 or lower. So that's kind of what I like to see. T3, T4, it just depends on what the person's suffering with or struggling with, but it's very common to have completely normal thyroid numbers, but you feel hypothyroid and you have low temperatures and pulses because your cells themselves are not responding to the hormone. So keep in mind your bloodstream is carrying that hormone, but that doesn't show us how your cells are responding to those hormones. And you need magnesium, proper amounts of copper, and a low inflammation environment to respond to thyroid hormones correctly. Also, are there any professionals like yourself who might be more well-versed on male hormones, or do you have male patients that you help? I'm not opposed to working with men. I just have more of a girly brand, so I think that like it scares most men away. But I'm trying to think of like more. I would go check out Isaac Pullman or Tomo Littlewood. Isaac Pullman or Tomo Littlewood. Those guys are probably going to be well versed in men just because they are men. And so, you know, when you're a man, you tend to pick up things for men. It's just because it applies to you. And when you're a woman, you tend to pick up things that apply to you because you're a woman. So, I think like I could help a man. Don't get me wrong, but I think that a man would probably be a better option. So Tomo Littlewood or Isaac Pullman are both great. Looks like we might both need help when you start taking new clients. And you can always apply what I do with you to him as well if you wanted to do it that way. Like we could do something joint where, you know, we're working on each other together, or you're working on each other together and supporting each other together. So that's something, but he might respond better to a man. I find sometimes that when a woman's telling a man what to do, they're kind of like, whatever, you know? And so sometimes it's better to like have like a man-to-man connection. But it really just depends on how someone's going to learn and what's going to bring the most success to you. Can adding collagen cause breakouts? I've heard this and it's kind of scared me off adding it to my diet since I already deal with acne. Yeah, it totally can. You have to make sure you're getting high quality collagen. Which is why I like to use Great Lakes brand. But sometimes gelatin is a better option if you're super worried about breakouts. It's not that collagen's causing it, it's just what the collagen's doing. So I prefer using gelatin for someone that's like really susceptible to breakouts, and just implementing it very slowly. Like I think the full dose is like a whole scoop, which is just 2 tablespoons, and I would start with maybe half a tablespoon. Thank you so much. I wasn't sure what the differences were between collagen and gelatin. I was jumping right into the recommended amount in coffee, so maybe it was just too much too soon. Yeah, absolutely. It can be too much too soon, and gelatin is definitely a little harder to break down. Just think of it that way, like when you're making Jell-O and it gelatinizes, that's what's happening in the digestive tract as well, and so it can be a little hard on the gut, and your body needs to learn how to break it down. During pregnancy. During pregnancy. Yeah, that's a weird, the endo question related to pregnancy. That is a weird thing to say. I don't think that's it. I think it's the progesterone rise during pregnancy. That's what helps with endo. And people are just saying like, oh, it's estrogen. Keep in mind that your placenta makes you progesterone all pregnancy long. And I would say that that's probably what's helping with endo so much. But most women with endometriosis have low progesterone, straight up, and a lot of them have elevated estrogens with driving horrible periods. But a lot of them, interestingly enough, I have had a few endometriosis clients who have normal levels of estrogen, but their metabolites on the Dutch test are horrible. They are not breaking down estrogen well at all. And so that's the problem. And it has a lot to do with what's going on in the digestive tract and their mineral levels. I swear to you, a copper issue is a driver in like fibromyalgia and endometriosis a lot of the times. It's copper dysregulation. It's not copper toxicity. It's more that you're deficient in copper in the cell, but you're toxic in copper in the tissue. And so you're not utilizing copper properly. And copper is the conductor of energy in the body. It's the second most important mineral besides magnesium. And so it's just important to keep that in mind. But yeah, I do think endometriosis needs to be addressed in a little bit of a different way than a lot of times it is addressed. Thyroid health needs to be optimized, metabolism needs to be optimized, progesterone needs to be optimized, detoxification needs to be optimized, mineral levels need to be optimized, and then by far the most important thing someone with endometriosis needs to stop. Sorry guys. Stop. Samson, stop. Charlie, stop. When we have endometriosis, the most important thing is limiting the amount of dioxins and toxins in our environment. So filtering our water very, very well, filtering our air very, very well, especially of pollution. Making sure that we are using all natural products. And when I say all natural, I'm not saying like the label says all natural. You're truly checking in with the environmental working group and making sure that they are completely natural, and I would use the least amount of products. If I had endometriosis, I would be using the least amount of products as possible. I would not be touching my body with anything unless I knew it was like pure baby tears, you know what I mean? And it will take time, but I think the exposure to toxins is the worst thing when it comes to endometriosis. I'm sensitive to every supplement and I'm losing all my hair daily. Yeah, that is, there are people that are very, very sensitive and they have really bad histamine issues, really bad, like they're struggling with a lot of detoxification issues, and in that regard it needs to be nutrition as the focus, and even like supplements need to be completely whole foods. I've been watching your story highlights religiously, and I've been meaning to ask, if you have PCOS, anxiety, gut issues, and thyroid issues, where would you begin with healing cellular level? I would always begin with magnesium, and would always begin by removing phytoestrogenic foods and polyunsaturated fats, of course, so like soybean oil, canola oil, all that junk, but nuts and seeds as well, lots of raw vegetables and cruciferous vegetables completely out, and then even like limiting that and getting most of my fiber from roots and fruits, and then only bioavailable protein, and then only saturated fats like coconut oil, ghee, grass-fed butter. That's the first thing I would start with. Most of the time it takes care of like 8 out of 10 issues, and then magnesium is the first focus. Potassium, minerals are going to be that next focus, to encourage detoxification. B vitamins need to be placed special emphasis on, so liver, brewer's yeast, that's gluten-free and non-fortified, bee pollen, things like that, or royal jelly, very rich in B vitamins. And that's kind of where I would start. Vitamin A rich foods are very important, like high quality dairy, egg yolks, and even like a little bit in like cheese and butter and things like that. And then also liver, fresh liver. Vitamin A is so important for PCOS, gut issues, anxiety, thyroid issues, skin issues. Vitamin A, king. And that's where I would kind of start. Nutrition is always it. Sunlight is always it. Getting the right type of exercise is always it. De-stressing is always it. But yeah, I always start with nutrition. Always. It always starts there. It needs to always start there. And when I say, like, a lot of people will tell me, like, but no, I already eat very healthy. And I'm like, what are you eating? Tell me what you're eating right now. And they're like, oh, like I eat like almond milk with my like vegan cereal. And I'm like, no. What are you eating? Like, where's the nutrients? Because I don't see any in there. You know, we got to really refocus and eat for biologically appropriate foods that are easy to break down and absorb, and stop eating so many plant foods that don't want to be eaten. When estrogen rises during pregnancy, I totally know what you're talking about. I suffer from hair loss and hirsutism due to PCOS. What do you recommend to help this? Get to the root of it. Always stop focusing on symptoms. Hirsutism, hair loss, it's all being driven by stress, imbalance within the cell. We gotta get to the bottom of it. It has nothing to do with the hair loss, nothing to do with the hirsutism. We need to stop separating issues and start getting to the root of the issue, which is improper nourishment. What are you eating? How often are you eating? Are you getting the right nutrients that you need, like magnesium? I mean, how are you sleeping? How's your sunlight exposure? What is your exercise like? What are you exposed to in your environment, toxin-wise? Getting to the bottom of those things is going to always help with our symptoms. Favorite way to eat beets. I love them, but don't know how to cook myself. Yeah, I hate beets. They taste like dirt, but I will eat them once in a while, just to force myself. I will usually just skin them with like a vegetable peeler and then boil them until you can pierce them with a fork, and then slice them up really thinly, and slice some red onion up, and then do like a little olive oil, vinegar, and salt and pepper, and then put them in the fridge and chill them for a beet salad. That's the only way I will eat beets, because I literally hate them. But a lot of people will like grate them fresh into a salad, which I don't really care for, but again, like I said, they taste like dirt and I hate them. What is another way you can do it? You can do, the red velvet latte and fully nourished is really good. Like, you just take boiled beets and then you blend it into a drink with like coconut milk or milk and some spices. So yeah, you can eat them in any way, but the best way to prepare them is to skin them and then just boil them until you can pierce them with a fork, or like roasting them in the oven always works really well. I'm so impressed over you. My mind is blown at all your knowledge. So young, but so smart. Thank you, Lynn. It's like sometimes like I feel like this is literally all I do. It's my whole life. But I just am obsessed with it. And I'm obsessed with knowledge. I feel like at this point in my life, I don't have kids. I'm not married yet. I'm in a relationship, but we're not married yet. And so for me, like, my time is spent researching right now for the most part, and like gaining my knowledge and creating my protocols, because at some point in my life, I'm going to have kids and I'm going to be married and I'm going to have more responsibilities, and I'm not going to have as much time to research. So I'm kind of just like biting the bullet, spending my time doing this now, so that I can, of course I will continue to research, but I probably won't be able to do it as much. And so I kind of need to come up with my ideas and my protocols now, and I have the time to do it. And I'm obsessed, I might as well take advantage of that right now. Boyfriend is cold all the time, especially at bedtime, but then sweats like crazy when sleeping. What can you suggest? He has MS. Similar principles to what I talk about here, making sure that he's eating frequently, eating high quality foods, making sure eating protein, carb, and fat, producing energy. You know, coldness is a sign that there's not a lot of energy being created. And MS is a problem with the myelin sheath of the mitochondria. So, you know, it's important to understand that this is usually, it does have nutrient deficiencies involved a lot of times. Getting to the bottom of those is important. B vitamins are really important. But yeah, everything that I talk about here would help him as well. Oh, it's an alkaline water filter system that filters out fluoride and chlorine, but adds minerals like calcium, magnesium, potassium, and removes rust and bacteria. Yeah, it doesn't sound horrible. I mean, alkaline water is funny to me because it's just such a scam, but everything else, as long as it's filtering the water, sounds good. How to fix it with copper. You want to increase your ability to utilize copper. So whole foods, vitamin C, everything that I teach you guys at Fully Nourished is so that you can utilize minerals better as well. These are things that I have. You guys don't need to worry about every single problem in the body because it can get really overwhelming for the average person and it can just be kind of confusing. And so, you know, when I try to break things down into applicable steps, I'm doing it with all of these things in mind. But magnesium by far and vitamin C are the best ways to increase your utilization of copper, as well as eating a nutrient-dense diet that's especially rich in vitamin A. Your knowledge and wealth of information to improve health on a deeper level has been so valuable, finally free and empowered to get healed. I'm on live. Can you keep them away? The dogs are just barking like crazy. I will save this live. Wednesday it was a weird, I couldn't save it because I didn't stop it soon enough. It was my fault. Can someone still work on balancing minerals when being pregnant, or is the detox too intense? It just depends on where they're at. I think like the implementation of things like magnesium and vitamin C are pretty safe. Of course, run it by your doctor, but I wouldn't do anything too intense while pregnant just because the detox can be bad. But, you know, things like, getting enough vitamin E and vitamin A and magnesium and vitamin C are all things we can do while pregnant that are really beneficial to us and babe. What does spotting during ovulation mean? I haven't had it for a while since FN, but it used to happen often. A lot of times it means that there's some type of hypothyroidism. Some type of low thyroid response in the cell is going to be a problem. So it's usually regarding the thyroid. 9 times out of 10 when someone's spotting, that's what we'll check, like temps and pulses. Were they low? That would be a signaler like, okay, there could have been like maybe some low thyroid function going on. Okay, thoughts on Ayurveda, and then I have like time for one more question after this if one comes up. I like it. I think Ayurveda has some merit. I don't like that it's like super rich in sesame oil or they do lots of grains and beans. Like that's not really my favorite, but I'm sure a lot of people have been helped by it, so I'm not going to say like it's wrong, you know. It's never wrong. There's a million ways to skin a cat, but I'm not like a fan of everything. I really like oil pulling. That's something that I use. I really like the copper tongue scraping, which I think is really good. And I really, what else? Like medicinal enemas can be a really good idea, which is pretty popular in Ayurveda. Intermittent fasting for PCOS, thoughts? It's a horrible idea. It's horrible. You're already having a stress response, you already have a stress-based issue, and then you're starving yourself to create more of a stress response. It ends up, sometimes it can help us feel good for a period of time because cortisol and stress hormones feel really good for a period of time, but then it ends up usually causing more problems in the long run, and we have to actually heal from the damage we did intermittent fasting. Thoughts on taking sulforaphane? Been taking for fibrocystic breasts, and it helps a lot. Not a huge fan of sulforaphane unless you're going to get it from broccoli sprouts and make your own broccoli sprouts. I'm actually a big fan of vitamin E for fibrocystic breasts. Most of the girls in Fully Nourished that have fibrocystic breasts or really painful sore breasts have gotten rid of their fibrocystic breasts by using castor oil packs directly on the breast and vitamin E. Not saying that it works all the time, but those are my 2 favorite things for breast issues. All right, guys, one more question, and then I'll wrap it up, and this will be live for the next 24 hours, and then I will be uploading this onto YouTube. I have like 3 weeks worth of lives to upload onto YouTube, so thank you for being patient, and I'm sorry it's gonna like bombard your feed with like 6 new lives from the last couple weeks. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for taking your time. Oh, why do broccoli and cauliflower tend to bloat? Yeah, because it's not good for you. You're not a cow. You don't have 3 stomachs to digest plant foods. And so cruciferous vegetables are really like pushed very heavily. I don't know why. They're very goitrogenic. They're very anti-thyroid. They slow down the metabolism. They provide very little energy in return. You know, they're not going to provide a lot of energy, but they take a lot of energy to break down because they're so fibrous. And so that's why we get super bloated. I haven't eaten cruciferous vegetables in like 6 months, and I've never been less bloated and more lean in in my life. So I used to, and this comes from someone who used to like literally eat that every day, multiple times a day. All right, I love you guys. I'll see you soon. I hope you have a really good weekend. If I don't see you, have a good weekend.